Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Unbelievable. This is episode 1. This is a limited series on Netflix that just came out today about a true story, based on a true story, of sexual assault crimes that sort of went by, I don't want to say unnoticed, but unbelieved. That's supposed to go with the title, unbelieved,
Yes.
until someone after like a similar crime years later kind of started to put the pieces together that maybe there was something going on that could be connected. So that stars Toni Collette, who is notably absent in this first episode, but we will start spoiler free because it is in episode 1, and we will go into spoilers at some point in the middle. We'll warn you, don't worry, and we'll see if you want to stick around and watch more by the time we get to the end. So yeah, obviously, very, very serious topic right away. There's some shows that I came into, and I don't know what the tone's going to be, but there's not a doubt in my mind starting this show, like, the overall feeling that I'm going to have while watching it, unless it's doing something incredibly wrong. That said, there is one really good laugh in this episode. There's a flashback at one point.
I'll put your word for it.
It involves birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was legitimately very funny. But
That was quite funny, yeah.
But of course, the rest of the episode is very serious and is tackling a very sensitive subject. And we have the lead actress in this episode. The character's name is Marie. She's played by Caitlin Dever. And it was bugging me at the start of this episode because she seemed familiar.
She does seem familiar.
And I was like, what have I seen her in? I've seen her in something. And the funny thing is, you could almost argue this is a kind of sequel to the thing that we saw her in. She was the kid in Short Term 12.
Ah. You could, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't exactly match up, but the idea that she's been in some shitty foster homes, that kind of thing, definitely lines up with that movie. And, you know, because she was playing like a mid-range teenager in that movie, but, you know, obviously here she's like 20, 21. I think she's playing 18, but the actress is like
Yeah, I think
22.
she's meant to be 18, 19.
Yeah, I think she's just turned 18 in the show. Because she's finally moved out.
Yeah, just left foster homes.
Yeah, she's just left foster homes. She's in like a sort of, it's like a apartment building that's specifically ran by people for troubled youths who are just starting out.
It almost feels like a student dorm block.
Kind of, yeah. But it's got nothing to do with school. It's just because she has a job. She has, you know. But the episode starts really, you know, right away. She's waiting for the police to arrive, like the first officer to come in and take her statement. And this first episode is largely just about her story of reporting the crime and sort of going through it with the police, and the doubt that then follows, kind of once some pieces don't add up the way that they should. And that's why Toni Collette's not in this episode, because Toni Collette, as far as I could remember from the trailers, is going to play the character the cop who starts putting it all together when a similar crime happens in a few years after this. So it makes sense that this first one is very standalone and is just this first instance on its own, which I actually quite like. I think it's a good focus episode that's just about this experience. And
it is, yeah.
Everything she goes through. So some of which is sort of widespread damning of how the system handles these things, some of which is just damning of specific people, some of which is, you know, like, I mean, because the first thing I would say about this story, this episode, is that no one really at any point, when they're debating why certain small details don't add up, no one maybe considers for a second that maybe she has PTSD or something of that nature. No one even ponders the possibility.
It doesn't even cross their mind.
Yeah, that really stuck out to me more than anything else.
And it's not like an intentional, they disregard it as a possibility. It just doesn't even think.
No.
It's not something that even occurs to them that could be a possibility.
Because the main cop, who's kind of the lead investigator, he, like, my first impression of him is that he doesn't feel quite as sympathetic to what she's going through enough. But as the episode went on, it felt like, no, he's actually quite fair. I mean, he's not maybe the most heartwarming guy, but he's being very kind of pragmatic about how he does everything.
He's not very comforting.
Yes.
But he's very professional.
Yes, whereas we'll meet some other cops later, one in particular who is much more infuriating in the attitude that he takes.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. So I mean, the episode's very focused. It's very much about the trauma of it. It plays with the narrative structure because we don't just get a full-on assault scene, the full-on rape scene. We get snippets of it as she's telling the story in fragments, and it kind of like matches up with her mental state and how she's remembering different details at different times and that kind of thing. It kind of emulates that in the editing.
It does an interesting technique of when she's being interviewed, for her story. They'll ask her a question, and instead of hearing her answer, we'll just see the fragment, the snippet of what she's thinking about as a response, and then it cuts back to the police.
Which seems to be a consistent stylistic choice, not just with her, because even when someone else is talking about a flashback, we just get the flashback, and it comes back after they've answered the question.
Yeah,
it happens with our characters as well, so that seems to be a stylistic choice.
Both a good and bad thing. In one sense, it's very much show and don't tell, right? To a T.
Which is typically good. Which is typically a good thing in filmmaking.
Something I would say is a potential downside, not necessarily outright bad, but often with flashbacks and things of this nature, it can be interesting to see how they word specific things versus just see the memory, and the actual phrasing can be very interesting in those sorts of situations.
And that's the thing. I almost think that's intentional, because I don't think the creators here want us second guessing her words. They want us in her head remembering what she's remembering, if that makes sense.
No, I get that, but I think for me, at least, if a large part of this is the investigation, right? And I assume that's going to be consistent throughout the show. Witness statements, for example, the key wording, I think, is interesting to me, and I feel it's a little bit of a loss not having that, even though I definitely respect the choice of what they've gone with.
I think you still get a lot of it, because other than that one major flashback that other character gives, you still get a lot of her like on either side of it, sort of wording things very intentionally. And I think with Marie herself, it kind of like filters out throughout the episode. So by the time we get to later on in the episode, when she's just in the interrogation room, there's no cuts to anything. It is just her acting, like from wall to wall. That's all it is. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds in a lot of ways, in terms of like you get to see her sort of have to like suffer through it, because that's a big theme of this episode, is that she's asked to repeat her statement time and time again, and she's like, I already said it. I said it. And I think
that's where part of my problem with what I was saying there comes in, is there are points where they question something again, and they're like, well, they obviously think, well, hang on, that's not what you said before. Something didn't add up, and I get that from context of their reactions, but I couldn't remember this specifically well enough because I didn't remember the words of what, because she never said them.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. She's not realizing she's contradicting herself. It's putting us in her POV.
No, I get that. It's just it's frustrating to me knowing that it's a contradiction by their reaction. Like, I can clearly see that she's not even noticing that there's a contradiction. She's not even aware of their reactions to this. I'm seeing it and going, okay, there's a contradiction there, but I don't know exactly what it was.
I think it's debatable if she's maybe not noticing that there's contradictions and like that's what she's getting from their faces, but I think it's debatable whether or not she's noticing some of the reactions she's getting when she's.
I think she is later on, but even like the first or second time where they question something specific, and she just goes, yeah, and agrees, and and the cop's like, right, interesting, and I'm like, right, okay, that was presumably a contradiction, but I'm only getting that because of his.
Yeah, a lot of that to me feels that they're almost like, I mean, it definitely happens towards the end and very intentionally, but sometimes it almost felt like they were putting words in her mouth, and she's too shook up to really like stand her ground and like be really specific and correct them, and like she doesn't really want to talk about it at this stage. I mean, not that she ever necessarily will want to talk about it. I mean, it's not like something you get in the mood to get chatty about, but like. Like I feel like the whole part of what I was feeling is that I'll say, so this is what happened, because they'll make an assumption and she'll just agree with it because it's too hard to actually think or remember or whatever. And there's very little sympathy for her in this episode past a certain point, which is a very frustrating thing as a viewer. But usually I just give the premise and ask the question. We've kind of went on some details here in terms of how it's handled things. Largely because the filmmaking is quite interested in this. But, Carter, did you enjoy episode 1 of Unbelievable? Well, I believe your answer.
I mean, you'll believe my answer no matter what I say, because otherwise what are we doing here?
I never believe you.
No, that's true. I did. I think it's extremely well made. It's very well directed, very well acted. I'm not sure I'm personally interested in watching all of it. I'm not sure it's for me necessarily.
Okay.
But it's objectively very good.
Yeah, I quite liked it. I think the performances are really good. Specifically from Marie and the main cop. Like I specifically like those two in this. And the way it played with the editing to kind of like put you in her frame of mind of what she was remembering or not remembering at any given point was also very good. I think there was only one scene really for me in the whole episode that felt like it rang a little bit false. And I'll just without spoilers. It's the scene in the they go to a store to like get some bed sheets.
Okay.
And there was kind of like a little outburst scene that happens there. And it wasn't so much that it felt unrealistic that this scene would happen or the character would do this or anything like that. It was more just the way the camera kind of captured it felt a little bit in my face in a way that...
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I also think the episode was a little bit over long. It was like a full hour. I don't think it quite needed to be.
Yeah, it could be tightened down to like 50 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, I just towards the end, I was feeling the length a bit, and
that's fair.
You know, I couldn't pinpoint exactly like, oh, this is where you cut or anything like that, but just I was feeling the length by the end, in a way that on a good hour, I don't.
Yeah. The length was never too much of an issue for me. I think looking ahead, they all seem to be about 50 minutes to an hour, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty consistent lengthwise. I thought it was a really solid personal drama, is what it felt like, and I think I kind of came into it expecting to be very frustrated with characters because I knew it was about people not believing her, and I think what's interesting is that I did come out of it, yes, being frustrated at certain characters and certain ways that the system works, but there was definitely some more nuance to some of it than I think I was expecting, where I didn't necessarily villainize the main investigator for, you know, his train of thought. It kind of felt quite natural up until a point.
It felt fair, even though he's wrong, if that makes sense.
It felt fair up until a point, but ultimately when he brought in the second guy, the second cop, to kind of like sit in and like sort of help with the rest of it, that was kind of where he just threw in the towel. It was almost like he was saying, hey, I you know what, I don't want to be completely responsible for this, and this other guy's like much worse and just tries to railroad her.
He is the thing is like most of his thought process lines up with the evidence that he personally has access to. We have this benefit of knowing the truth and, like you said, being in her head, you know, all these things, whereas he doesn't have that. He has a bunch of conflicting stories that, okay, here's the situation, and I can understand why he gets to the point that he does, even if I know he's wrong. So, you know, I don't hate him for it. He's not a hateable character in that sense.
Yeah. I think it definitely comes back to this idea of like having no... I don't want to say no empathy, because I do think he has empathy, but like there's it's kind of like I
think he is very detached, but in the sense of you probably need to be in that sort of job.
Well, yeah, that's not a broad sense, but like I'm talking about just having no skills of how to talk to someone who's been through this, and having no skills as to how to determine like how they're responding. Because one of the big mistakes that happens in this episode is that another character who kind of gets the ball rolling on the this might be fake train, it was a very frustrating conversation, and part of it's because this person actually says that they're also a victim of sexual assault in the past. But the frustrating part of this scene is that she assumes that because Marie's not acting like she did when it happened to her, then there's something wrong with it. She doesn't even consider that someone might react differently than she did.
What's more frustrating in this scene is, you know, the cop that she's telling this to says, well, you know, as I understand it, there are a range of reactions that people have in these situations. And she just goes, yeah, but it wasn't my reaction. And then
you're right.
There's no follow-up. There's no follow-up from that on the cop. He doesn't question that. He just says, well, I guess if it's not your reaction.
Yeah, that's the basic exchange that happens. Actually, you're right.
So it's a little frustrating.
So, but because what it says to me is this guy's not a bad guy necessarily, but he doesn't like coolly consider certain things or consider why your story doesn't add up. You know, it's just like, well, if it doesn't add up, there must be something untrue about it. Like that is the assumption. There's no empathy to the idea that, oh, she's really struggling to even process this, and can't talk about it in a straight way.
I suspect it's a lot of it's down to a lack of training on their part.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was getting at. I feel like, if not the detectives themselves, I almost feel like for victims of sensitive crimes like this, there should almost be a position of someone on the force who's just, their job is just to be the mediator, just to talk to the the victim.
Because that's the thing. Like, the detectives, they're trained to, well, hey, if the evidence doesn't add up, something's not right.
Yeah, basically, I guess what I'm doing is I'm combining a detective and a therapist into one sort of unique
kind
role.
of
Investigative therapist. There you go. That was a really strong first episode. I think it built the character up really well. It gave us someone who, I want to talk about a couple of things with spoilers, but it gave us someone who you get like a more solid picture of like who she is as the episode goes on. It always felt like it was giving us new information about every time someone started opening up about her, it was like, okay, we're really getting to know who this is and what her past is. And like I say, the actual drama of the investigation, the frustration of how she's been questioned, because you can see the moments every single time in an interrogation where they're making it tough for her to like just say the truth or say what she's feeling, where they get accusatory or they get like almost threatening at one point. I mean, that's just call it what it is. There's some downright emotional abuse essentially that takes place right towards the end of the episode. And I know that's a spoiler. I think the outcome of this opening story, barring a couple of things, is pretty obvious.
Established in the premise.
Is because that's where the show is going to go, because we're going to come back to this character after another crime. So yeah. I guess we'll give the spoiler warning. Full spoilers for Unbelievable. So obviously the big spoiler is that it ends with her maybe going to jump off a bridge. Given that we know her case is reopened in a few years, not that someone has to be around for the case to be reopened, but I'm fairly certain Toni Collette comes and talks to her, so I feel like she doesn't jump.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible she does, and that's like, it's just a piece of evidence later.
Let me correct myself. I don't think she dies. She might still jump and survive.
Okay. It's possible that she dies, and we play it with that route as no, hang on, this has already happened. This was the outcome. You can play it that way.
Yeah, that just makes it more tragic than it already is.
No, it does, but I feel like we spent so much time with her in this episode that I would be very surprised if that was the route they're taking now.
No, I mean, I don't think she's ever going to be the main character again, quite the way she was in this one. Because I think once Toni Collette's here doing the case, like, we're going to get a lot of her side. We're going to get that stuff, and we'll get more victims. We'll get all that stuff. But no, I liked how I love that we have. There's a glimpse of her at one point early on, like a little flashback moment of her on a beach running towards the water, smiling, right? And there's no context for it.
Completely out of context at the time.
And then we actually see why she's thinking about that. We see later on, when she's been questioned for like the third time, whatever it is, one of the details that we've not seen yet, because every time we see stuff, we get like other little bits we've not had before. I think we hear from her that he said something in the first interview, but it's not until the second time we actually get to hear him say it, kind of thing. Like, there's a lot of like building blocks as it goes on. But where she's like, her head's pressed down, she's blindfolded, but the blindfold's kind of starting to like sort of shift up a little bit at one of her eyes, and she can just sort of see a little bit. And what she can see is a photograph on her bedside cabinet of her at the beach. This memory is what she was looking at during the attack. And it's this really like dramatic contrast. It's this happy memory in her life, and we find, because as the episode goes on, we find out she doesn't have a lot of happy memories. Like her past is pretty rough already, which is one of the almost not excuses. What's the word I'm looking for here? One of the things that's sort of presented as like, hey, this is why she might be troubled and be willing to make things up, is that she's already went through a sort of abusive past. We find out specifically that her real parents, or real was it her father or mother? I can't remember.
I think it was her father.
Made her eat dog food. Was like one of the things. And some of the foster homes weren't better. So I mean, we don't know if it was sexual in any of the foster homes. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, but
I'm inclined to say no, on the premise that if it was, I think one of the foster parents here, who already knows about this history at the other foster homes, would be much more inclined to believe this, I think, if it had happened already.
Yeah, that's fair. Because both of them have their doubts. The first one, the one that she just lived with for 2 years, who's there at the start of the episode, and is the one who tells the cop that, hey, there might be this might not add up. And so the one funny scene, because there was actually a laugh out loud moment in this episode, is she's describing some of her erratic behavior over the last like 6 months to a year. And she was at like a bunch of foster kids were having like a birthday party. And the first part of it is that she was dancing kind of like suggestively, and it was kind of inappropriate, and she kind of had to like shut her down for it. But the second one, the one that made me laugh, is that this little boy or a girl, I actually don't know what the kid was, but it was a little kid, was about to blow out their birthday cake, right? So they're singing happy birthday, the candles are all lit, but it's probably
like 6 or 7.
Yeah, 6 or 7 candles on there, and Marie's behind the kid, a few steps back, and just as he leans in to blow, she just takes a couple of steps forward, leans over, and blows them all out herself. And everyone just sort of stands there in shock. And I'm not going to lie, my dark sense of humor thought this was hilarious.
I did too, I'm not going to lie.
I'm not like I'm saying that I've got something to cross off my bucket list. All I'm saying.
Does it have to be a kid's birthday cake?
Yes.
Yeah.
I need to see them cry.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. And then the joke's on you, because it's actually those candles that, just like, don't really go out. Those like joke candles that you get.
I mean, maybe.
They're annoying as shit.
Sure. But yeah, so that scene with her is very frustrating, because she's the one who kind of gets the ball rolling on that train of thought. Not that it necessarily wouldn't have happened anyway, because there's contradicting elements to the story. Because when what she tells her friend, who I think was named Connor, actually, that's why I remember his name. Yeah. He is told that she dialed the phone with her feet, and that's not what we saw when we saw a glimpse of her dialing the phone. We also saw her untie her, cut her restraints free before she dialed the phone. Whereas when the cop asked her at one point, so you did it in this order, you dialed the phone and then cut your restraints off. Yeah. So we see the contradictions building. So yeah, it's this kind of thing, and then so we have that first foster mom, and then we have the other foster mom who comes by sort of 20 minutes into the episode or whatever, after she's already like made her first statements.
Yeah, because she phones to let her know what's happened.
Yeah, and that's got a very little dark moment as well, actually, when she gets off the phone and her husband, presumably who also helps with the foster kids, is like, oh, that was Marie, how is she? Just sort of not even like, just sort of half paying attention, doing whatever he's doing with his hands. And she's like, she was raped. And he's like, okay, wait, what? And his head just kind of snaps back up. It's like this kind of just little moment of like the reality hitting him.
Yeah.
Of like,
because he was just explaining, yeah, she's fine. Had already started responding, assuming that was the reaction.
Yeah.
And then realized what she'd actually said.
Yeah, so she comes in to try and help her, but by this point she's almost like she's acting as if everything's normal. She's smelling at the guys who live in the same complex. She's putting up posters, and of course the one thing that she does do that's weird is when they go to the store and she like snaps at this employee because the bed sheets she wants aren't stocked anymore. They're just not there anymore. And she really loses her shit. The reason why this felt a little rough to me, just compared to everything else, was just the way the camera, the lens they were using on her face.
Quite high up, wasn't it?
Yeah, it felt really in there. And I get the point of it's that, like she's just in her own little world right now, so we're in right close. But you can do a close-up without it having this feeling. I don't know, it struck me just kind of the wrong shot type. But I mean, it's a minor thing. And... and ultimately she kind of like just says bye and like tells the foster mom to go away, politely, but as if nothing's wrong, as if nothing's happened. So she's also left thinking it feels kind of weird, like she's acting. And again, could she be in some kind of weird state of denial or some other PTSD kind of element? Again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not one to diagnose these things, but I'm just.
But also probably.
But probably, yeah. So you don't have to be a good singer to recognize when someone else is out of tune. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, tell me about it.
I'm sorry. Are you implying something about the quality of my singing?
Oh, I'm not implying anything. I'm saying it outright. Often terrible. Yeah, I have to listen to it anyway. Just for some background, obviously, before we start recording, we'll sit for 5 minutes, whatever, and chat. Whatever. He will just sing randomly, just start humming, singing. It's frustrating. He knows it is, but he does it anyway.
I've always done it. This doesn't do because we were on the mic. So
I know you do. It doesn't make it less frustrating.
Like, I'm sorry if my renditions of various movie soundtracks are not to your liking.
I think's more annoying.
What?
Is that it's the same three things over and over. You'll go through phases of like it's these things for 6 months, and that'll be it. And then just last week you started doing one that you haven't done in like 3 years.
Really? Which one?
Jesus, the MGMT song.
Oh yeah, the kids song. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That was one that was every day. Every day you would sing that one. And then nothing. It just stopped until like a week ago.
I'm feeling bad right now. We got a new review on Apple Podcasts like just yesterday saying we're really good, but we tangent sometimes into off-topic things for too long.
I mean, I'll take the blame on that one.
I'm aware of it. I just want to say, we've not helped in this case, but I'm aware of it. I'm noticing it. All right. It's on the brain.
Tangents are part of the charm. Except for that person who obviously didn't think that.
Yeah. So, yeah, like it presents you these characters. We have to talk about the other cop. We have to talk about kind of where it goes in the back half of the episode because, he kind of like literally starts looking over his shoulder. I mean, he's talking to him first, but he kind of walks around the desk and starts looking over the main investigator's shoulder. It starts asking questions. And sure enough, when she comes in to like give, hand in her statement, or she already did that actually, they ask her back in to like, try and figure out
follow up because they've heard some conflicting stories.
Yeah, all inconsistent. And the funny thing is that obviously there's no actual witnesses to the crime. It's just inconsistent stories because of what she's said to various people,
which I think is fair to ask for follow-up clarification at this point. Going, hey, we know you said this to us. We want to believe you, but you've said 6 different things to other people. We need to just make sure that the one we've got is the truth.
There's tact, though. There's ways.
No, there is. The way they go about it is not ideal.
There's ways to do it. I mean, don't ask me what they are. Again, I'm not the qualified one here. I'm just saying that this is not the way to do it. Because the second guy is very. And don't worry, he acts nice enough at first. At first he's just saying, "Hey, this is how important this is, and if this is not true, if you maybe in the spur of the moment, cried out for some attention, but like." You felt lonely, whatever.
So we'll understand.
Yeah, now's the time to fess up, and we can kind of move on from this.
And I do believe him at this point as well. He does seem genuine in this moment of, look, hey, if this is what's happened, that's fine. We'll let this go. We won't bring it back up.
And yeah, I think you have to acknowledge the filmmaking here at this particular moment, where it sort of builds up for a few seconds before she just says no, as if to agree, no, it didn't really happen. Yeah. It's very much this moment of build-up where, not for a second do you think that she really believes what she's saying right now. That this is the pressure of the moment kind of getting to her, and that life will just be easier from this point on if I just, and obviously every time something happens, people wonder why people are scared to speak up about being attacked. Like this moment almost, this isn't even the worst of it, but this type of moment is exactly the kind of thing that we're talking about. And she's crying as she says it, and she's crying afterwards, and they leave her a new statement. She can't leave right away. You have to write out a new statement. And she's already wrote out one, which was already tough for her in the first place. And they leave, and they go outside to just wait for her to write her statement. And they get her a snack from the vending machine. But this is where the conversation gets very kind of like, this is the first time we really get to see their opinions. Because up until this point, every time we've seen the investigator, it's always been very...
It's been in front of her, very professional.
Very, very formal. If not in front of her, at least in front of someone else, in front of one of the foster mothers, whatever. And here, they start just like... This is where we get the little detail about the dog food. And... He's not, and the main guy's not saying anything too bad, because he's like, oh, I mean, if you can't feed your kid dog food, like, come on, like, just wear a goddamn. Or if you can't take care of a baby, like, use a condom. It's very abrasive. It's not like a very well thought out comment, but it's at the same time, it's not the worst thing you've ever heard, right? But the other guy starts to sound a little bit more frustrated and a little bit more. This is a waste of our time, and that's kind of when they go back in. And he looks at her statement, and what she's written down is kind of formed into, I dreamt I was raped, and it felt very real.
I might have dreamt I was raped.
I might have dreamt, yeah. It's very non-committal. And he gets, because she's about to leave, and he demands she sits back down, and then says, what we do in here, we could be out there, protecting people, but we're in here, and this is part of the job, and that's fine, but only if it's valuable. And this is not valuable, kind of thing. It really gets on her case.
Yeah.
And until she eventually writes a report they're happy with, a statement they're happy with.
I mean, some interesting stuff in the middle. Like she's like going, "Hey, I'll take a polygraph test," And
it's not yet.
Was that not yet?
No, because she basically signs off that it didn't happen, and she gets talked to by the one sort of nice guy in the complex and the woman who runs the place, who works there, and they're like
a therapist.
Yeah, and they're like, "Hey, so did this not happen? Like, did you make this up?" And she's like, "No, it did really happen." And they of course sort of turn it around and say, "Well, if there's a rapist out there who's dangerous, then you really have to be honest about that, because you could help prevent someone else from being attacked." I mean, they don't say that exact sentence, but that's what they're getting at.
And they're not entirely wrong.
Oh, they're not. Obviously, they're not wrong. And so they take her to the station to sort of resubmit a new statement. And the cop is not amused at this. And at this point, the main investigator's not here. He's off for the day. So we get the tough guy and then some random uniform cop to come in as well. And I think it's also notable to me that she's basically been interviewed by the time when this uniform cop comes in, this older man, she's been interviewed by 4 cops, and they've all been men. And I'm not saying that I expect there to be female cops out and about to always take first statements or anything like that, but I feel like in a situation like this where you need a second officer to sit in, would it not make some sense? It's somewhere along the process to try and not make her feel like she's talking to 2 old dudes all the time.
It might, yeah.
Because that was the other thing. We didn't even talk about all the clinical stuff when she's getting checked at the hospital. Yes. Afterward, and just the monotony in how sort of routine. Because the doctor who as she's walking out, says if you feel any of these things, discharge or pain or anything, and then just at the end, without even pausing, without skipping a beat, just adds on to the list, thinking of committing suicide. There's numbers at the bottom to call, and just walks out with a smile on her face. It's very uncaring. It's very distant and cold.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she goes back in to make this statement, and he gets livid at her in the room, and this is where she says, "I'll take a lie detector test. I'll take a polygraph." And he's like, you can. And this is where I really feel like he was railroading her. Is that, hey, I mean, you can take a polygraph test, but if it turns out you are lying, if the polygraph says you're lying about what you're saying, then at this point you've definitely falsified a statement, and we are going to have to arrest you for that. You're going to be charged, and your privilege of living where you do for the help you get, that'll go away. And he's basically threatening her. He's basically threatening with everything that's going to happen.
It's a gamble. You can take that, but if you fail, then this is what's going to happen.
He's basically
scaring her into it.
Yeah, he's trying to scare her into not giving him more work. And I'm not saying that's his only motivation here. Like, he probably genuinely believes that nothing happened. But he's trying to scare her into just backing off because it'll make everything easier.
It would, yeah.
And yeah, so sure enough, like, he tells them when he comes down, like, yep, no, it didn't happen. She's admitted that it's all false. And she is shunned. She is treated like absolute dog shit by everyone, because they have these, like, meetings, all the kids who are there, and they all, pile on her. They all refuse. The ones that she was friendly with before kind of shun her, and it's this night at the end of the episode where she goes to the bridge and goes over the edge. And actually, I really like that shot of it kind of coming up and over until it's looking right down at her before it cuts to black.
That was nice.
It was a nice moment. So yeah, I thought it was really well made. I think all the ways that it handled all the moments, like I say, the camera tracking in right before she says no to agree that it was false, but even though she doesn't believe that, obviously, and we don't. I mean, we know it's not false because of the premise of the show, but I think even if we didn't have that knowledge, I think at this point we would be more likely to side with her than anyone else.
Sure, yeah, we would. I think what's interesting as well is, I think it's not that she doesn't believe this. No, I think she's starting to doubt it herself. Like, she genuinely isn't sure anymore. That's why when she phrases it as to, well, maybe it was a dream, maybe it was that. I think she's starting to believe that that's a possibility because they keep questioning it so much.
I don't think it's so much that she believes it's a possibility as much as it's like they're making her doubt her in the moment. But it doesn't change the fact that she was waking up with nightmares the night before. It doesn't change the fact that the next night she's also having nightmares again about him. Because that's when she comes back the last time, and it's the whole polygraph thing. The conversation's been brought up. She says, "I remember him being on top of me." Like that. She says that line. It's like, no matter how much like you try to make this out as a fever dream or something I made up, like the memories are there. And of course, there's all the circumstantial evidence of, like, the only items left behind were stuff that were already in the house anyway. All the stuff that the guy brought with him, he's left with. And, there's all these things that leave no physical trace of anything happening.
Yeah, no fingerprints anywhere.
Yeah. So, which ultimately means it does come down to purely just believing her. And everyone's just more than happy to just take the breadcrumbs that are there to suggest maybe they shouldn't and just call it a day.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing the two cops talk about when they're out of the room, is they start talking about this other case from like a year or two ago where someone accused a professor of doing something, and it turned out it was false. And they mention, didn't he sue her? He's like, yeah, he did. And it was the older guy, the rough one, who was like, I can't blame him. He gets really kind of opinionated about it. And it gives you a sense of like how they're thinking about her in the moment. At least the tougher guy, certainly. Like, yeah, that's what's on his mind, is this other story where it was proved to be false, and his attitude towards that is what he's got in his head. So no, obviously very not the pleasantest watch in the world, because it's the subject matter is exactly cheery.
Yeah,
but so far it's really well handled, and I really can't wait to watch more of it. I think it's really solid. So,
that's fair. I don't think I do, and this is where it's really well made. If this was a 2.5 hour movie, I think I'd be really into it, and I think it would be I'd go, yeah, that was great. I think as a TV show, it's not what I typically enjoy as a TV show. It's 8 episodes, I think.
Yes, 8 episodes.
And for me, when I'm getting to that, okay, it's just a straight drama about this, which for some people is obviously going to be fantastic. They're going to love this. It's not what I'm looking for to watching a TV show, personally, even though it's very well made.
All right. I think I'll be doing episode 2. I will try and endeavour to get that out sometime over the weekend. Although I've got 5 movies to review over the weekend, so we'll see how it goes. But
5. Tim's been a slave driver.
That's not all Tim. 3 of those are Tim.
No, I know. At least 3. Yeah.
I'll blame him though. I'll happily blame him. But that is us. That is our thoughts on episode 1 of Unbelievable. And You can, of course, let us know what you thought of the first episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe and all that jazz. You can, of course, support what we do by rating us on Apple Podcasts, like the gentleman who said we tangent too much. We'll try and hold that in a little bit as best we can. You can also, of course, support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. We can support us for as little as $1 per month, and that helps all the content be produced to keep coming and grow and all that sort of stuff. So go have a look, do that. But that is us. So check out other stuff we've been doing. I did try a couple of pilots from Netflix. Well, both. I know it was both me, just me, because you bailed yesterday, yeah.
People came round unexpectedly, and they were here till like 4 a.m.
You got to avoid episode 1 of The Island, so you don't get to say anything.
If it makes you feel any better, I was a bit hungover at work today.
Oh, good. Hope you were miserable.
Because I was up drinking till 4:30 a.m.
I hope you were absolutely miserable, because I had to watch The Island. It was not pleasurable, and I was not happy about it. I also tried another Netflix show today, which was called Marianne, a French horror series, which they put out today, same day as Unbelievable. So you can check my review of both those pilots. They're already up, so go and have a look at those. And of course, next week we have another thing from Netflix. I think next week is The Politician, if I remember right. Next Friday.
Nope, that's the week after. Next week is Criminal.
Oh, Criminal. Okay, sorry. This is the Interrogation Room anthology show, which has been made in 4 different countries, and yes. UK, Spain, France, and the fourth one that I can't remember. But
yeah, and so. the English speaking one has some recognizable faces from what I recall.
David Tennant, I think, was one of them.
I think David Tennant's in it. I want to say Hayley Atwell.
David Tennant, my homeboy.
Yeah.
Are they only one episode each, or are they all 4 the UK ones? Or is each episode of the UK chunk all just like one's David Tennant, one's Hayley Atwell, one's...
I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, me neither, so we'll find out next week. Yeah, find out. I wonder if they'll be in a different order depending on what country you're in. Like, I wonder if like...
Oh, do you think if they put your country first?
Yeah, assuming you're in one of the 4. Or if you're an English-speaking country, they'll put the UK section first.
Maybe.
Or are they in chunks? Maybe it's like maybe they alternate between them as they go.
That's if it were me, I'd probably start with the English one because Netflix's biggest audience is in English-speaking countries.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I'd probably alternate through different language ones, and then put another English one. If they are like, okay, David Tennant's in one and then Hayley Atwell's another, I'd put them like that. So that, okay, you've got a reason for people to watch through them to get to the one with the next face they recognize. And after 4 or 5 episodes, they probably know if they're going to carry on watching through the other language ones or if they're just done.
Yeah. We'll find it next week, though. So that's coming next week from Netflix. We'll be trying that. And I will be continuing with Unbelievable. So I've got a busy week ahead of me. So you can look forward to that. So that has been Unbelievable Episode 1. Thank you very much once again for watching and listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?